Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to Coffee Time. I'm Deanna. Let's see who's here. Give me the thumbs up or let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. I'm just going to check and see who's here. So much to tell you this morning. It's just going to be a crazy news and info episode. A lot has been happening. Kira, you are there. You made it from Plymouth. Great to see you. I'm glad you're there. Heather, happy Thursday. We have to arrange something. We really do. The kids are going crazy, crazy to see Patterson. Cindy, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning, Joelle in Calgary. Good morning, Sheila. How are you? You enabler. You enabler. I was working on my thing last night again. I am so bad. Chrissy, good morning. Great to see you. Martha, you're there. I hope we've answered you, and if not, I'll check on that because we're trying to figure out what was going wrong with your Patreon. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting me on Patreon. I'm so sorry that I don't say it every day. I don't think of it as often as I should because my head is filled with things I want to say before I forget. But for everybody who supports me on Patreon, I really appreciate it. It helps a lot with the buying and the time that I spend working on Coffee Time, and I really, really, really appreciate you. There's information below if you want to become a Patreon member. There are discounts and bonuses and perks associated with it for like the entire year. So thank you so much to everybody who's been signing up for Patreon. Heather, Penny, good morning, Penny, in Chile, North Carolina. Chilly here too. You can see I'm still in the living room. I'm going to head out to the studio later, but I had brought so much stuff here to work on. I cranked through tons of orders, and I'm on the threshold right now of an enormous order that came in Sunday, like a $700 order that's many, many, many kits. So I'm going to work on that this afternoon, and then I'm going to be right up to like the last orders that came in. The coffee mats and all that are going to go out like this. So getting there. I have to say that Klimt kit that I did this month, I absolutely love it. It is tricky. Let me know if you have any trouble with that face because there's only a few lines on that face. Don't mind the blue hands. But it is, I feel like in putting it together, I put like 8 more together last night and sent them out. I feel like it is in a way my weird Valentine to you because it is loaded with everything is like either ribbon, beautiful metallic ribbons, like luxury fancy fibers, or stuff that I hand dyed. I hand dyed a ton of stuff and hand painted a ton of stuff for this kit. So I feel like it's my Valentine to you all, and I'm making each one so great. Perfect. I think I'm making them perfect, and I rarely say that, so I'm super happy about that. Cynthia, good morning in South Texas, 34 and raining. I'm thankful you're retired too, and you don't have to go anywhere. Isn't that a great feeling? You deserve it. You should stay right in where it's warm. Donna, good morning in Alberta. Oh, it was nice seeing everybody on Zoom, Sheila. It was nice hearing you. It was such a, we didn't really talk about work or do anything busy yesterday. We were just joking around and being silly, but it felt like a relief to do that. I took an hour off and did that and just sat, and it felt like a huge relief. Linda, it was great seeing you yesterday. Hello, and hello, Catherine. Great seeing you yesterday. A lot of the buddies were on Zoom in Arizona. It was a lot of fun. I needed the laughter too. And Mom, hey Mom, good to see you. Karen, good morning in Stratford, Connecticut. You just reminded me I got to go to the Antique Center. There's something I need there. But also great to see you. I think Stratford is the sweetest little town, and we're so close. I can't believe there was more snow. They told us it wasn't coming. Snow for today and tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow is not coming. So, oh boy, are we getting hit. Ted, good morning. I have not forgotten about you at all. This is a 4 snowstorm week for me here. I mean, this is really very Courier Knives, right? I mean, it's in a way charming, in another way very stressful with school going on, same as always. Pat, great to see you. A sunshiny morning. Beautiful winter morning for you, huh? And Amber, frosty morning. Good morning, Amber. I'm glad you're there. Linda H. in Massachusetts, great to see you. Kathleen, great to see you. Oh, you should get your Klimt maybe today, Kathleen. I wouldn't be surprised if it came today. And Teresa, oh, good morning. Great to see you, Sharon. Great to see you. Sharon sent me this book that I have just been, I was like crying this morning reading it. I get so over emotional. Sometimes I think there's something wrong with me, but it's such an epic story about Lillian Burke. When you read these epic stories about people who have just had the most not eccentric, like colorful, purposeful, meaningful lives. It takes on proportions of like an epic story, and I get so sucked in. So I got to the end, and that's part of where the commentary is today. But it was fantastic. Thank you so much for sending it. And somebody wrote and told me it was on Amazon. I searched Amazon right the day before I started this series so I could post a link, and there was not one copy. But I hope that it is on Amazon. I haven't had a chance to check this morning. That would make it easy to get. So we'll come to that in just a minute. Okay, great. I think everybody's here. So much has been happening. It's just crazy. So before I get going on Lillian Burke, a few things to tell you. It's life is just so full of surprises and interest, isn't it? Sometimes. Um, I got an email last night from a woman called Patricia. Do you remember? I think it was last week or the week before. I did a little bit. It was right after we looked at the book by Judy Taylor on restoring the rugs. And somebody had sent something, I can't remember who, but it was one of our great buddies here, about check out this rug hooking magazine thing about these Priscilla Turner rugs. So then I went down the rabbit hole the following morning with my rug hooking magazine, and I was researching Priscilla rugs. Do you remember this? I think it was last week. Anyway, oh great, right through the publisher. Okay, great. So Sharon's saying you can get this book straight from the publisher through Amazon. So that's what you want to do. This is the publisher here. Let me put it right there. So check Amazon for that and the title here. And I'll show you that again. So we were talking about the Priscilla Turner rugs, and remember how I read a few articles that I found from like 10, 15, 20 years ago on the internet that were not super informative, and everyone was saying, how can we find out more about these Priscilla Turner rugs? Because they pop up from time to time, they go for quite a bit, they seem to be desirable, but nobody knows anything about this place, and it was a 20th century business, and they employed people during the Great Depression. So what happened? Well, wouldn't you know, Patricia wrote me and said that her dad ran the factory. And she said it was the strangest thing. I'm going to call her tonight on the phone. She said it was the strangest thing because she never thinks about it or talks about it. And remember how somebody in one of the articles said, "Oh, good morning in Toronto. Cold here too. We're all chilly. I think we're all freezing our butts off. Welcome." Remember how in one of the articles it said, isn't it funny that her name is Priscilla Turner? It's almost like a manufactured name, like somebody who had just stepped off the Mayflower. Do you remember that remark? Well, anyway, Patricia wrote and she said, it was the strangest thing. I never think about this. I never think about the rugs because her dad ran the company. And she said, I had the strangest feeling to Google Priscilla Turner rugs. And she Googled and she pulled up the video that I did the other day where we were talking about what a mystery it was that we couldn't find out anything. So she knows some stuff, and I'm going to call her tonight and I'm going to see what I can find out about Priscilla Turner rugs. So Priscilla Turner rugs, Priscilla I think is a made up person. I haven't talked to Patricia yet, but I'm assuming the Priscilla part's made up because Turner is the town in Maine where the company was. So I'm also kind of thinking about taking a road trip up there. It's a long drive, but it's February, right? You need something in February to keep you going. But it sounds so exciting, and I asked just quickly if some of the buildings that related to the business were still there, and she said, yeah, not the old gristmill, the original building, but the later buildings, because if you remember, the company moved. But I thought, what an interesting and exciting development that was, that she had this weird feeling to Google, and when she did the video, it was quite new. It wasn't like I recorded it a year ago or 10 years ago. It was quite new. And so she got in touch right away, which I thought was just super fun twist. I also wanted to show you, I forgot, February Black History Month, I have 3 designs for you, and I just want to show you, I touched up the first one again, so this one is now on the website. I should have put a link to it, I'm not sure I did. Do you remember Princess Quimino, Duchess Quimino? I put a border on it, and I broke the border at the bottom with her dress. She was, this is her famous frosted plum cake. She became known as the pastry queen of Newport. This is the late 18th century, like the late 1700s, an ex-slave. She had her freedom, she started a business, she did her own baking, and she made this cake that was called a frosted plum cake, and it became very famous, and her business thrived. And I just thought she was a great person to be celebrating for Black History Month because she's a woman during the 1700s who was an ex-slave, immediate. She was a slave. She got her freedom. She opened a business and she was successful. I mean, that is an amazing twist. So, oh no, where did I put I need the picture of the birds, I think. I don't know where the picture of the birds is. I have something else exciting for you because I got another email this morning. If you can remember this image, I've shown it to you a few times. I was waiting. Crystal, I don't know if I saw you here, but remember Crystal's grandmother did the research, thank you, for this book, the Cheticamp book that we're also still into. Well, she put me in touch with the person who, another person I think who worked on this book and is part of the museum there, put me in touch with her about the use of that rug that I found because I said I would love to be able to reproduce the rug, this one, and share it with people because I also found it, as you know, on this book here. And when I saw it here, I realized it must be a Lillian Burke design, right? So that kind of evolved from this. So I wrote to the person who is now at the museum and I asked them what the status is of this amazing design. And she also believes it to be, I spoke to Lisette this morning. She sent me an email and she said she also believes that this design is by Lillian Burke and it was called Art Deco Cormorants. So this, she said that I have permission to use this image and I posted it on Ribbon Candy Hooking for free. It's a free download. I'm going to keep it a free download all this weekend because we're going to be talking about Lillian Burke as a launching point tomorrow for cocktail night tomorrow. So this pattern, which is a Lillian Burke pattern, is available for free. The link is in this video. I'll put the link in the Facebook group, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. And this pattern will be free right through Sunday night. So you have a chance to download it. If you want it on linen, monk's cloth, whatever, great. Let me know because, of course, that costs money, but I can do that for you too. So I just love that design and I wanted it to be available for us and I wanted to celebrate Lillian, and I will show it to you again. I'll probably show it to you tomorrow for cocktail night too. I just think this is an extraordinary design because it kind of has the touches of the Pearl McGowan, Cruel, Jacobean type trees. You know, it has the feeling of that era, but it has the sweeping kind of aggressive roughness of birds. It makes me think of like a Dorothy Sayers book or something. Birds descending, very rough and wild. So I know it is awesome. So I was super happy to get permission to be able to use this and to share it. And she said, please make sure that the viewers have it and they can enjoy it. So yeah, I had drawn that out and I was just waiting for permission. And it took a few days because she was on vacation. So we have permission. So it is there. You should download it. You should transfer it. You should hook it because it is absolutely beautiful design. I think it's one of my favorite designs of all time. And it's to celebrate what we're talking about all week and what we'll be talking about continuing into tomorrow night, Lillian Burke and her important, tremendous, meaningful impact on Cheticamp and the sort of trajectory that the people of Cheticamp, their lives had after she arrived. Talk about one person making a huge difference. We're going to return there in a minute. One more thing I want to show you, I got going on last night, and then I'm going to go into commentary. I don't know if you saw the post in Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. I started playing with my little pincushion dolls. I gave myself 1 hour to do this last night, and I stuck to it because I am busy. But, you know, I used to have a huge collection of these pincushion dolls, and I thought of them after I did the tomato pincushion for last month's kit, the January kit. And a lot of people got on and said, oh, I collect pincushions and also the pincushion dolls. And I thought, I used to collect the pincushion dolls, particularly the German ones, not so much the Japan ones, because the German ones were just super fine. And I ended up selling them all when I started rug hooking because I wanted to buy wool and everything was very expensive. So it was one of my collections of collections, and they didn't mean that much to me anymore. And I was kind of out of that sort of boudoir prettiness around me and kids and dogs and things breaking. So I sold them all. And then I started thinking about this one. I just have my fiber tape over it, which I loved very much. It was like a little Art Deco lady with dark hair. It's a real flapper. And I drew her out one of the days that I was home and I didn't have any supplies. I didn't even have my tracing paper, so I ripped the paper off something. And I was experimenting with what she looked like with her little bird and all the pincushions sticking out of her. And I ended up doing this last night. This was what the hour, oops, I gave myself. and I transferred her onto a little scrap of fabric that I had. And then I decided to do, you know, with the silk neckties we dyed in class the other night. We did the dyeing class on um, Sunday night. This is like some of the patterns I got off the silk ties. So I decided to proddy up her dress a bit because the way she was, oh, they're so pretty, Carol, pincushion dolls. It's like a little, they're called half dolls. It's like a little bisque doll who's hollow in the middle and she's got two holes. And typically you would sew her onto a pincushion that you would make yourself back in the day. But a lot of women also sewed them onto the top of a broom or the top of like a powder puff thing to hold your powder like a jar. So her skirt would be the powder puff. But this one that I had, the person had taken the fairly typical doll and you remember those millinery velvet leaves, you know, that kind of thing you would see in the early middle 20th century. They look like velvet. They really weren't, but they had that nap and they were kind of ombre and colorful. She had put like a very basic sawdust base on the doll and then she covered the top with these giant millinery leaves. So that's what I was going for here, was just remembering what that looked like. And again, I'm not heartbroken that I sold the thing. And this gave me an opportunity to do this. And I did all the bottom of this in sari fabric. This took about 10 minutes to do her whole skirt because sari ribbon was already as ribbon hooked so quickly. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. I grabbed a bunch of fabrics that I meant to do that with. And I think I showed you, this is like the silk tie pieces. These were two different ties, a red one and this sort of checkery one. And those are the ones I used on her skirt so far. So, and then the other thing, and then I had some other colors that I thought, yeah, let's do this. These are all pink, like boudoir type colors again. And I thought, it's not really doing it for me. It's too predictable. And I started, for some reason, thinking about the Vermont Country Store, where I haven't been for years and years, and thinking about this yarn that I had dyed. I don't know if you can tell, it's like a cobalt blue with little pops of like an amber color in it. But I had dyed that a while ago, and I never found a use for it. And when I looked at this, it made me think of that old perfume, Evening in Paris, right? Remember how popular that was years and years ago? And I thought, ooh, Evening in Paris, because in the Vermont Country Store, they have Evening in Paris. And that's the only place I've ever seen it or smelled it. So when I think about the Vermont Country Store, weirdly, instead of thinking about buying maple candies, I think about Evening in Paris. And I started to hook that around her because I thought, ooh, she deserves an evening in Paris. And so do I. So do all of us, right? Hope you can see that. It's not coming in focus because my fat face is in there. But yeah, that's what I'm hooking around her for now. And I made like kind of an Art Deco composition, kind of like an airtay, swirls around here. I will show you how it evolves. I have to put it down because I did my hour and I had my fun. And I drew this one too as a second one because I also had this character. She's tipping her head sideways. She looks a bit weird in this picture. She looked better the way I drew her here. She's tipping her head side. This looks better. I didn't transfer it well at all, but I didn't have my tools. And she looked like that. And she actually, somebody had wound a little bit of fabric around her body. So I might put her into a pattern too and do a second one as a how-to video. I'm going to see if I can get to that this afternoon. So I could show a proddy video. Heather and I did a proddy video that didn't work out because it was too far away. So I might try redoing a proddy video this afternoon with the other pincushion doll and show you how to cut the leaves and put them through to have this crazy kind of crazy speed when you do proddy. But the thing with proddy is unless you really want to do flowers, sometimes it's hard to think about a design that would lend itself to proddy without doing something like flowers or a wreath. Or leaves. So that's what made me think of this, was the millinery flowers on this thing's skirt, that would make a good proddy thing. And then I thought, ooh, the silk ties, the fabrics I don't want to cut up because they're so pretty, I don't really have to cut them up. I can leave them with big like sort of transfer pieces showing, and it came out, I think, great. It's going to be great. So more on that later. But yeah, some of them do have crochet skirts, Cynthia. I had one that had like a yellow and white, almost like a doily draped on top, that was super, super pretty. But lots of fun. Come on over, Heather. Come on over. Come on in, proddy. No, I'm going to go this afternoon. I've been dying for several days, and yeah, it's time to do something with my hands other than dying. I love the creative rabbit trails. Thank you, Karen. I do too. It's funny how one thing leads to another, isn't it? Exciting. So yeah, so we'll hold on proddy. That's coming up. I also want to tell you before I forget and get into commentary, tomorrow night is cocktail night. So the theme for tomorrow night is the sort of overarching theme for our show, right? We talk about history, we love history, and we love to be grounded in the history of rug hooking. It gives us a starting point. It gives us a place to launch off of. But at the same time, I like to sort of have this like golden thread of creativity going through our episodes and our talks so that we're not just talking about history, but we're talking about how we can apply ourselves and our creativity to the craft of rug hooking or punch needle or whatever it is you do, if it's something completely different. And with that in mind, coming back to the Lillian Burke story, I'm gonna sort of wrap up the story of her and her life, and I'm gonna start with the cocktail night tomorrow. Finish the story of her involvement in Cheticamp. But then I'm going to go into a very narrow path where I want to talk about her as an artist, her as a creative artist, as someone who came to rug making as a trained artist with a lot of talent. And I've done quite a few composition, the Edward Sands Frost stencil classes. I did one for fall and one for winter. And that's all super fun, and I'm going to get back to that too. But I just want to reinforce, talking about creativity and making beautiful original patterns, that this is something that you can do. And I feel super inspired by Lillian Burke and her story and the things that she did in her art, which we're going to look at in more detail at cocktail time tomorrow night. But during cocktail time, I want to play a game that we used to play when I was growing up. It's a creative game about composition. And it's fun, and it's for fun, and it's not stressful, and it's just one small part of cocktail night tomorrow night. So I want you to, if you have time, and if you're going to join us for cocktail night, I put a link in the description of this video that you're watching now. I put a link to the free pattern, right? The Art Deco Cormorants. I called it Lillian's Dream. And I also put a link to a sheet that is completely free to print out. It's a sheet of little stencils. And if you feel like you might want to play the game, and I'm going to describe the game tomorrow night at cocktail time, but if you feel like you might want to play the game, do you have the sheet over there? Print it out on your computer, and to be even more prepared, just cut out the silhouettes of everything in the picture. And it will all, thank you, it'll all make sense. This is what the sheet looks like the way that I just drew it this morning, half asleep. If you print this out on one piece of printer paper and you cut these out, then you will be ahead of the game and you will be ready for us to play a game tomorrow night that has to do with composition. And I can just about guarantee you, playing along, that you will end up with the most beautiful, at least one of the most beautiful compositions you've ever seen, sort of in the style of Lillian Burke. So that said, I have to add one more thing about Duchess Quimino. One of the other interesting emails that came in 5 minutes before coffee time just started was from the Newport Historical Society, because I had written them to say, do you know anything else about Princess Quimino, the pastry chef of 18th century Newport? And they sent me 3 links about her life. That's everything that they have on her, everything that they have on her in the world. So I added those links also to the description of this coffee time. So if you're interested in that pattern, you're interested in her as a historical person, check out those 3 links that Ingrid from the Newport Historical Society just sent me, because as soon as I get off and have a chance, I'm going to read all 3 of the links. It looks like beautiful historical content and interesting information. So back to Cheticamp, and we are already so far into the episode. This is the kind of crazy news we get, right, on a Thursday. So I'm going to come back to this book, and we're going to be going back and forth between these for the next few minutes. Tomorrow I'm going to start off with this book, and we're going to do an all creativity episode, starting with Lillian Burke, and I have a couple other people I want to bring to your attention as far as designing and creating and making your own patterns. But for now, if you remember on Tuesday, we left off with Lillian Burke coming to Cheticamp because she had been at Badek. And at Badek, she tried to sort of reignite the population of ladies there who had tried the lace making with Mrs. Bell, Alexander Graham Bell's wife. That was not successful. The lace making enterprise was not successful. She ended up dying a few years later, and then her daughter came back with Lillian Burke to the area with the idea of reigniting something creative there that would bring some kind of industry profit, money-making possibility to an area where people were being terribly taken advantage of with bartering traveling sort of peddlers. So they were hoping that they could create a situation, an economic situation, where people would actually start to make money with some kind of cottage industry, and they settled on rugs. And then, if you remember, Lillian, being the artist that she was in her heart and a trained person, tried to bring designs to Bedeck that were new and different. Can you check the oven? I think I left the yarn in there. I am like a major handful this morning. High maintenance person this morning. I have yarn in the oven. But anyway, people did not take to it because they were so much more used to the traditional designs that had already been there. And they were not interested in the new designs. Hard to believe, but it's just the way that it was. So she ended up going about 65 kilometers away to Cheticamp. And that is where things happened. And that's where we left off. So when they got to Cheticamp, the problem was language for Lillian, and also for Mrs. Fairchild, the daughter of the Bells, had married and is called Mrs. Fairchild. So the two of them, the two friends, are having a language problem. And luckily, they are linked up with a woman called Marie Jane Doucette. She's a restaurant owner, and because of her occupation, she speaks a lot of English and French, so she's bilingual. And she's very happy and excited to be their sort of interface, their translator, the business end of things in Cheticamp. And that's just what she does pretty much for the rest of her life until she's really ready to retire. She's an extremely warm, kind, happy person who's very happy to make herself useful, to help out. She's interested, she's creative too. She really feels it as a project. She gladly accepted the opportunity to work together. And she visited with hostesses from her restaurant. She would visit ladies' houses, and she was always very warmly received because she had a wonderful personality herself. She could speak to anybody, of course, with her French and her English. And she really held up the Cheticamp part of the business for all of the year when Lillian and Mrs. Fairchild were not there. They would go back to New York, of course, off season, and they weren't in Canada in the winter. So Mrs. Doucette was there because she lived there year round, and she would make the rounds. She also got 10%, like Lillian did. She would make the rounds. She would greet people. She would make sure everybody was good with supplies, with design, with everything. And when ladies were finished doing their rugs, she would pack them up. I mean, this is a lot of work for her because she's constantly doing rounds. She would pack everything up and she would send it to Lillian, who would then sell it. She had a studio gallery in New York, and she also had a studio in Bedeck, the town where it didn't work out the first time. So Mrs. Doucette would send the rugs that were made. The first year, not so many. The second year, something like 150, because they sold so well. And of course, all of the ladies understood when they handed the rugs off that if the rugs didn't sell, they would be returned to them at the end of the season. And that would be heart in your throat, really pins and needles kind of suspense, because we're talking about a lot of money, like a major windfall. When you make something with the intention of selling it, you really hope that it's going to sell. So women would be kind of in this terrible limbo of suspense, wondering if their rugs would sell, but they usually did sell because the market was so great. Tomorrow night when we start cocktail time, we're going to talk about the market in the sort of 30s, 40s, 1930s, 1940s, why the market was so hot for hooked rugs, and how what the sort of atmosphere was like for people coming into it then, like Lillian Burke. We're going to include that in tomorrow's sort of creativity episode. So Lillian brought some more interesting things to the rug hooking community besides her unique designs, right? And her designs were super unique. I'll show you again tomorrow, but let me just show you some of the drawings, because the story in this book runs parallel and is just crazy. It's crazy how interesting twists and turns, rabbit holes. It's going to be one of these very suspenseful episodes of Cocktail Time tomorrow night, because this story is amazing, of discovering Lillian Burke's designs after them like being gone for years and years and years. But those are some of her drawings. So besides bringing this new sort of sensibility about design, this sort of art deco, arts and crafts look to rugs that it definitely didn't have before, besides that, she brought a lot of technical knowledge. She brought the idea of using, in place of vinegar, sulfuric acid. So we'll get to that in 1 minute. I'm going to end on the supply note of things, because up to this point, women were using, do you remember the brand Diamond? Or have you seen in antique stores? I often see displays for Diamond brand dyes. They're beautiful displays and they always cost a fortune, so I haven't picked one up yet. But Diamond was a very big brand. It was a European brand, came from Germany, but it was imported to the US. And Lillian imported it from the US to Canada. So they were using, instead of natural dyes, they were using chemical dyes. And that's how they were able to get exact colors that they wanted and to do multiples of one rug design. So they were using these diamond dyes, and I'm sorry, those are not the ones that Lillian preferred. She preferred the next ones that came into Irvin dyes. So the ladies were using, they were aware of diamonds. Some ladies who were not using natural dyes used diamond, but Mrs. Burke, Miss Burke, Lillian Burke preferred Irvin. Now that is one that I haven't heard of. Diamond, yes. Irvin, no. But she preferred the Irvin, so she switched everybody to Irvin. It seems like mostly because they had a ton of colors, a ton more colors. And then there was less mixing to do because mixing takes time and takes getting it right. And there's a big margin for error. And not everybody enjoys that part of it, the dyeing part, still to this day, right? So she brings in the Irvin dyes, which are different, and she brings in this idea of using sulfuric acid. So this is going to be a lot more powerful. You just need a little bit, but it's a lot more powerful than vinegar. It doesn't smell like vinegar. You don't have to worry about getting the smell out of it after. So she made these two huge changes to rug making, and she also brought with her to the community her like vast knowledge about the technical arts, not just composition and supplies and materials, but like the color wheel, right? Because this is not something that they would have learned in school at this point. So she's starting from scratch by saying if you use red, blue, and yellow, you can get any color you want. I mean, using those skills that she had sort of accrued over her many years of art school and classes. She was sharing all that information too. And she was also urging people, particularly when she wasn't there, and Mrs. Doucette, reminding Mrs. Doucette that it was very important to only use very light colors. And if you think about it, sort of 20s, 30s, Art Deco era, you do see some bright colors, but you see a lot of pastel colors. The trend was really for lighter shades, unusual shades, kind of muddy shades, not primary shades, but light values of unusual colors. So her big message was keep the palette quite light. It's much more desirable. It's much more in fashion. And that is just what happened. And for whatever reason, the ladies of Cheticamp were much more willing to adopt these changes, the different patterns, the different brand of dye, the sulfuric acid. They were much more willing to do this than the women of Bachette for whatever reason. So let's pick up with this tomorrow. Yeah, let's pick up with this tomorrow. No, let's just finish this chapter. One more minute, and then we'll start with a fresh thing tomorrow at cocktail time. So we're talking about the dyes. I did all that. That's great, right? She also introduced this method of dyeing that we still use today. I did it in the dye class right before Christmas. And what they did, because of course they're using yarn, not wool strips, all yarn. They have this method of tying up skeins of yarn on a string, dipping them in at intervals, either reverse, dipping them all in and then pulling them out slowly to make an ombre color, or reverse, dipping them in, however you want to do it, light to dark, dark to light, so that one skein of yarn would have what we now call an ombre effect, go one color, light to dark, not going from one color to the second color, but one color light to dark, which is really useful when you're hooking to have that color variation of the same color, right? Just a different value of the same color. So that is also something that she brought to them, were these technical tricks about dyeing that were real simple. Just hang a bunch of skeins on a loop and hang them over a vat, and with your hands dip them down. Takes a little elbow grease, but I mean, it's not difficult, is it? And you get a fantastic result. So we'll leave it at that for now. By the way, that's a method that we now called, and I called it in the January class. Joelle, you were there for that one. When you dip from like light to dark or from one color to the next, which is not what they were doing, this is the technique that I refer to as Loch Ness Monster, because you have some of the skein in the pot and some of the skein hanging out of the pot and sometimes into the next pot of the next color. And you end up having something that looks like this on your stove going between the four pots. if you want 4 different colors. So that's the technique that I would call the Loch Ness Monster. I don't think they had a name for it yet, but it's basically the same thing that they were doing way back when in Cheticamp, which is just kind of interesting and sweet to think about. Life going full circle like it does. So tomorrow, don't forget cocktail, no coffee time tomorrow, cocktail time at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be a creative episode. If you can, if you dare, print out that one sheet. If you can, cut out some of the little stencils so we can play a really fun game tomorrow during cocktail time. I'm going to start with the story of Lillian Burke in terms of her biography, a little bit on her biography, and a lot on her designs and her sort of style, and how we can interpret her style or our own styles or bring out what's inside of us to do our own designs the way that she did. Because it's not hard, it's not rocket surgery, right? It's something that you can manage. So if you dare, print out that sheet. Check out the other links I put in there. The free pattern for today, Lillian's pattern, free all weekend. And I will see you all tomorrow at, oh, I'm glad it cheered you up, Kira. I'm sorry you need cheering up. Proddy for a lion's mane. Oh, Mom, that's a great idea. That just gave me another idea. I will tell you tomorrow. That just gave me a great idea. All right. So I will see you all tomorrow. Happy Thursday, happy Friday, and I will catch up with you at cocktail night. Try to be ready for it because it's going to be a very fun game and a very creative episode.